Talked briefly the other day when I was talking about everything, the COVID and everything, lockdowns and this and that at the party in William Street in Dublin. And obviously the mess that was left afterwards. Now I said, people entitled to the gallows, but leaving a mess after you is, it's something that shouldn't happen. Again, with plenty of bins and things like that. And people able to bring them home. You should have brought them home. And that's just putting it straight, because again, it's not respectable, and that's the simple that we want people to show a bit of respect for our city, and for towns and for villages, and people not to litter, or to act selfishly, I suppose too, you could use. So the reason why often people say we need more bins and things like that, but that's not the case. The reason why we don't need more bins, and again in Cavan alone, in Cavan County Kids have made this very clear, that and it's my opinion too, that the bins that we have are sufficient. It's the fact that the rubbish that's on the street, like people take for example buy a cone or something like that, or buy a tub of ice cream, or say a tub of ice cream at the shop, and they're walking along the street and have a plastic spoon or whatever. They throw it into the bin. Obviously, that's what it's there for. But there's people, and again I came across this many times. Last week there was somebody threw a radio into one of the public bins. And we had to go and chase him down, and we had to go and look for him and ask why he's dumping into bins, because it's still an offence, because it's an offence really to dump into a public bin, especially household waste. It's different if it's just only bits of rubbish, like take for example a bottle of Lucasade or a can of Coke or whatever. That's okay. That's what the bins are there for people who are walking along the street. To throw in a can of Lucasade or whatever that they finish with. It's not there to put in hundreds of black bags or anything. And that's what's happening. And this is unfortunate. This is people taking advantage of it. And flow in the bin charges and things like that. They don't pay the bin charges. They just dump it into the public bins and let the taxpayer pay for it. And then there's this respectable people like myself and other people that go out of our way to pay the bin charges. And pay for our bins we pay for our bins. We don't go around dumping it or throwing it into things. And obviously it is better to put it into the bins to dump into the sidewalk. And I'm sure everybody would agree with that. It's at least you can give them that. They're not that dirty. They're not that selfish to go around and throw it into rivers and lakes, which is happening all around the country. Or throwing it along the side of the road and expecting somebody else to clean up after them. At least in fairness, to throw it into the bins. At least they give them that. But again, it's still an offence to throw. Take for example, the radios are free. In Cavan Dup, you can go into the free electronics. Anything that's electric, it's free disposal. It's free disposal. Just pure laziness. And that's what I said to the person. Pure laziness. It was that pure laziness. Nothing else that can describe it. And obviously we deal with him in time being. Because pure laziness. Again, it didn't cost anything. And again, you might be saying it's a public bin, but again, it's household rubbish. It's technically household rubbish. And don't ask, like, I've seen people throwing bags and bags and bags and fill up bins, and that's how bins get filled up, because people keep throwing in household waste and things like that. Like the bins wouldn't be full. Like again, I know parks in Cavan, for example. You see people going with cans of Cokes and things like that. So, and sometimes when it's very busy, it can be full up very quickly. But the majority of the time, we have full or so with cans of Cokes and say ice creams or whatever. It wouldn't be overflowed, but it's because people throw in bags and things. I've seen it many times. Over my years, people throwing in bags of rubbish, which the bags do sit in the bottom, and they do take up the majority of the space in the bin, and that's why it fills up so quickly. Is the people legally dumping household waste into it, and that's obviously not the solution. It's not the solution to the problem, because it's really just giving them more of a problem, giving them more opportunities to throw into more bins. And it just again, it's down to enforcement too, because it's not fair on everybody in the country having to pay for bin charges. And some people getting off with it, and some people getting off floating the laws. In other words, so what just happen? People are floating the laws, and it's not acceptable. These people do get off with it. Sadly, a lot of the time they do get off with it. And that's obviously an issue that we do have to deal with, and something we have to address. But obviously, in relation to the public toilets, as I said before, they obviously are essential to provide. Obviously, they do some antisocial behaviour comes out of them. That's up to the local authorities and up to the local guards to do something about it. Because you can't expect people to bust in the street, like young women or young boys and young girls. They can't expect them to be just busting the kidneys, causing themselves harm to the kidneys. The same with older people. You can't be expecting an older person to walk halfway around the town to get to the nearest public toilet. You can't expect that, and that's just and then local authorities need to step up in parks and in beauty spots. They need to step up and provide toilets for people. and obviously do need to be clean and everything. Um, but yeah, bins are not the opposite. It is, and again, I know what I'm talking about. I'm years doing this now. I've seen it so many times, and again, it's selfish. Again, at the end of the day, it's not as selfish as people dumping in the side of the road and expecting people to run around after them, clean up after them. But at least in fairness, some people do throw it into the bins. In fairness, they're not as selfish as the people who would dump in the side of the road or dump into rivers and lakes, which has happened many times before. Um, and cause extreme amount of damage to the environment and to beauty spots. And they just don't care. But again, at least in fairness, the people who dump into the bins, at least they have a small bit of dignity. Again, have a small bit. Again, they shouldn't be doing it, but at least again, I can give them that they have a small bit of dignity. They're not that scummy. Um, and again, I have seen many times people dumping in household materials. I've seen one time actually, funny actually when I was here, somebody leaving school wiping the true loads of school books in, and they had their name on it, so it was an easy pickings because they had their name and their address on it, so it was easy to say, how did your books end up in the bin, in a public council bin, and they couldn't provide any proof for why it ended up there, so they would just set the bill and they were told to pay it, and that's the end of it. But again, that's the thing, we can't be taken advantage of like that. And the taxpayer have enough to pay for without paying for other people's rubbish, who can afford. Again, the majority of these people can afford to pay it. They just refuse to pay it and just utterly just float it and just couldn't be bothered. And whether the taxpayer paid and them. But again, it's not as bad as people dumping alongside road. But anyway, thank you for watching. Subscribe for more. Bye.